Is Taurox the Brass Bull any good? I'm pretty sure most of you know the answer is yes, but there are still different angles to cover. Taurox as your legendary lord with his mechanics, that's one thing. Taurox confederated into your forces is another, so we'll cover all of those angles. Please like, subscribe, comment, and consider donating through my Ko-fi page. Thanks! Here's the basics of how Taurox compares to a Doom Bull. Taurox begins with 700 more hit points, 30 more armor to rise to a ludicrous 130, identical leadership and speed, melee attack of 53, and his attacks are flaming for better or worse, with an attack interval of 4 and a max 6 splash targets, which makes him 50% better than the Doom Bull at tossing around blobs. Melee defense is 47, so improved by 9, and weapon strength is 500, with base 125 and AP 375, with most of the boost being applied to armor piercing. Charge bonus is 54, very brassy. Mass is 4500, which isn't bad, and 1000 better than the Doom Bull, but he's not quite at Scar brand levels. Like the Doom Bull, he has all the usual Beastmen stuff like Woodsman and Hide and Forest, inflicts fear by default, and has Blood Greed as well as Slaughterer's Call. A special trait he gets by default is Blood Beast, which is an explosion centered around him, inflicting the burnt leadership debuff for 10 seconds and helping to take a bite out of those blobs. When you play Taurox as head of the Slaughterhorn tribe, you get his unique campaign mechanics, offering you momentum and rampage, and allowing you to spend momentum and replenish movement points to keep going. Of course it helps if your army is still in fighting condition. Taurox's personal rating stance becomes the Juggernaut rating stance, increasing his movement range, but taking a cut to the income gained. You also have the River of Blood effect, with victories debuffing leadership of non-chaos races in the area. The power of a rampage increases the power of his army, with all kinds of wonderful goodies. Taurox also reduces the dread cost of increasing unit capacity for Minotaurs, and Minotaurs only. Now, there's a reason I'm going through the whole thing like this. My experience with Taurox was as a Confederated Lord. In that state, he retained Juggernaut rating and River of Blood, but lost access to the Rampage mechanic. On the other hand, being part of the War Herd of the One Eye gave him a flat ambush bonus, and I made liberal use of it. Rampage is still quite a thing, and I definitely look forward to using it in the future. As a Lord, he gains access to all the things the Doom Bull did. Oh, and I forgot to mention Gouge Tusks, and there's a reason. It raises armor piercing damage by 15. Not 15%. 15! No, it's not nothing, but I literally didn't consider it worth commenting on. I also hadn't focused on how the lords get Banquet of Flesh rather than Foe Seeker, adding a flat 15% to speed and plus 30 to charge bonus instead. It's good stuff, but you don't need to consciously think about it. So let's go with the personal line. Unlocked at rank 12 as usual, he gains plus 5 Corn Corruption. How this works as Confederated, I didn't bother checking, and 25% spell resistance for his entire army, and gains Brass Body, offering him plus 24 melee defense and plus 40 ward save for 41 seconds. It sounds like a lot, but that 120 second cooldown is also a lot. Juggernaut grants Taurox the Dazed debuff in melee, reducing the enemy melee defense and speed. Recall that the Doom Bull gets this by default. Taurox also gains plus 10% weapon strength and plus 20 charge bonus with this one skill. Drenched in Blood gives a flat plus 1 bestial rage per turn, helping Taurox keep horde growth high and so on. Plus gains the potential for an extra level of River of Blood region effects as a reward for, winning. Titans of the Deep Forest gives your faction plus 1 Gorgon unit capacity, which helps even if he's Confederated, and grants plus 10 armor for Gorgon, Giant, Jeverslith, and Sigurd units in Taurox's personal army, which gives you a reason to recruit them to complement Minotaurs. Gore Feast literally grants this trait to Taurox, plus it changes Blood Greed to Gore Greed for all Minotaurs in Taurox's personal army, and I've gushed about all of that in the Minotaurs of Khorne videos I've made. It's great, it's fantastic, and it helps make up for Beastmen Minotaurs having a lot less armor. Now, just to point this out, Gore Feast itself is constant regeneration for free, no fire weakness. So that means Taurox gets hits. Demonic Vigor grants permanent perfect vigor to Taurox, which is just ridiculous, and shaves 25% off the cooldowns for his abilities, namely Blood Beast, Brass Body, and Rune Tortured Axes from Taurox's quest battle. This was already accounted for when I confederated Taurox, but you can find a battle guide on the net. Just do so when you're ready. The item itself gives +8 melee attack, allows for magical attacks on Taurox permanently to shred physical resistance, sadly not fire resistance, and gives +10% weapon strength. There's also a passive ability component which supposedly recharges, but the gist is just keep this guy in melee and don't worry about it. The passive raises melee attack +8 again, and gives +15% to both types of weapon damage. Just get in the brawl and keep brawling until stuff dies. I won't go into the Doom Bull Inherited 2 pass except to say if you're picking anything with Taurox except the Orgy of Slaughter option, do even get Taurox. I mean, really now. So with all these good things, what is Taurox missing? Well, if it's not a Minotaur or at least a giant unit, Taurox doesn't buff it, except potential redline boosts, and he doesn't offer specific faction effects to raise income or casualty replenishment or anything. You're completely dependent on heroes to do that, and specifically on Gore Bulls to provide crucial extra anti-large. Once you get set up with Minotaurs, it's practically game over, but until that point, and hey, until Taurox gets Brass Body, he feels a bit vulnerable. Mixing him with Chaff troops only gets you so far. Also, to state the obvious, Taurox isn't a spellcaster. He's also limited to a single quest item, so everything else is from drops and stealing and so on, so it's an issue of luck. When I confederated him, I got him with 1 Hearthstone, some devastated settlements around him that I couldn't benefit from at that point, and Taurox. I didn't have an army with him whatsoever, so I had to rush Chaff into his ranks to try and make do. Eventually I did, and eventually I got him Minotaurs and things calmed down, but it was a bit thin prior to that point. Taurox himself is pretty strong, of course, but he needs the help. Mass Ungor Raiders only get you so far. I mean, they're free, but yeah. Once he gets the entourage, there's pretty much no stopping him. Minotaurs with great weapons carve up cavalry and monsters, and regular Minotaurs mulch infantry formations. Taurox isn't even needed personally for these fights, once you get the Gore Greed upgrade, but he brings battles to an end by murdering enemy lords and heroes better than most of your forces. Gorgons and other single entities raise your efficiency, and the rest is just culling mass targets to let your heavy hitters work more efficiently. I will say there is an approach that says Taurox is strong enough, you should upgrade his blue and red lines first. Well, you can do that up to a point, but the fact is, unless you're brimming with Gore Bulls already, you are relying on Taurox himself to end battles for you and preserve your army better. Don't be afraid to spend points on Taurox himself. It might be somewhat difficulty dependent, but no, he hits hard. You need to lean into that as much as possible. The rest is pretty standard, but hey, tying down archers is a job for warhounds and harpies. Taurox is there for crushing main battle lines and carving a path to the Lord. That's not always simple, but once you get to the destination, things tend to go your way pretty quickly. Take care, and have fun raffle rampaging across the map.